Well, it's 10 o'clock. It's a morning. It's Tuesday morning. And welcome, everybody, to the AutoCAD Civil 3D New Features Part 1 of 3, webcast. I would like to thank everybody for attending. So far, we got a pretty good turnout. I'm pretty pleased with this. First question to everybody before I mute anybody. Can you all see my screen? All right, is anything running off of the screen like the PPI logo or the word AutoCAD on your end?
I see everything.
You can see everything. All right. We've been having some issues when we do webcasts occasionally that our screens are too large, and when people get them on your end, they end up cutting off. So I want to make sure everybody can see the screen. I've got my resolution cranked down to help out. We are recording this. This is a live recording. We'll play it back later. We'll have it up on the website for a little later this afternoon. And in a few minutes here, I will mute everybody and start going. Just some preliminary stuff to get going. Again, my name is Heidi Baltwell. I'm an application engineer here for the PPI group. I work out of the Portland office. I'm going to go over some items this morning. We're going to talk about, the new features and some of the basic new features I'm going to hit. We should have 2 more parts which cover the other new features. This is kind of like if you missed our road show, this is kind of a fill-in. If you saw our road show, this will be a lot like it. The topics covered this morning. We're going to go over the new point features that are out there. There's an unlimited size on the import. 2008, you were limited to either 2 million or 2.5 million points and objects within a drawing. Now in 09, we are not limited at all. You can also bring in multiple point files at one time. We're also going to look at some of the new surface features. There's a data clip boundary, which helps when you're bringing in millions and millions of points. You can reorder your surface operations. You can simplify surfaces now with 2 different operations. We'll look at surface volume correction, and if I got time, I'll go over the break line weeding factors. Finally, today, we'll also take a look at the alignment and profile features, the new stuff there. Things a lot of engineers had asked for the last couple rounds of AutoCAD and Civil 3D specifically was getting some criteria or design checks in there, doing like AASHTO tables and whatnot. They've now incorporated that into 2009, so now you have the AASHTO 2001 table set, which can be modified. You can go in there and change it up, leave what they have, start anew, whatever you want, which is great. So you can assign it to an alignment, you can take it off of the alignment and or profile. In 08, you can assign K values to your profiles, but they're not really design checks. They're more or less just to help you out. Now you can actually grab it from the table and it will put the appropriate K value in there. Well, to a degree. We'll also look at what the new best fit entities are and what they mean. And if I have time, I'll go over the new spiral commands, the circular curve by length, and the spiral through a point. As a note, before we get started, I was checking the web last night. I was helping out Mr. Johnson, very nice gentleman, and noticed that Service Pack 1 is now out for Civil 3D 09 and Land Desktop 09. To find that, you're going to have to go to autodesk.com, go through Services and Support, and browse to Civil 3D, of course, out there to your flavor. And it should be on the back side underneath Updates and Service Packs. So it may take a little, get through. We'll provide a link eventually here on the website in the next day or so that you can just click straight over to that website to get the Service Pack 1. Want to learn anything else? Want to learn more? Up and coming events? It's a lot of them I put on here in the next couple months. We've got a lot of things going on. First of all, our new fall training schedule's out. Got a lot of new classes. We've got Navisworks now that we're offering. For those of you who aren't familiar with Navisworks, there was a webcast. It could probably be viewed on our website from a couple days ago. Welcome. And let's see here. We're also offering a new one, Piping Design, where we'll go over HydroFlow, piping, and part builder. And AutoCAD for surveyors. So those of you guys who are surveyors on the line, Portland's October 30th and Seattle is December 8th. Intro for surveyors, basically. It's a one-day just going over the survey fundamentals of how Survey and Civil 3D works. So those are some of the new fall classes coming out. We got a couple golf tournaments coming up. The AGC Summer Conference. Our next webcast in the month is August 20th for Map 3D, and it's on utilities. Let's see, we have our PPI Annual Golf Fun Tournament coming up September 5th. Oh, and Technology Days. For those of you who couldn't make it to Portland or Seattle, We'll be coming to a town near you. September 11th, we'll be in Eugene, and September 17th, we'll be in Bellevue, Washington for our Technology Days, taking the rollout show that you'll get here in 3 parts, and then some more on top of what I'm doing here at those 2 places. If you want to know any more, there's our website, www.theppigroup.com/events. If you need training, hey, we offer it. If you need help, we offer it. Just ask. We do consulting on the side besides teaching, guys, and tech support. And thank you guys for attending today's webcast. There's my email. There's our 800 number. If you ever need to talk to me, get a question to me, feel free to call, ask for me. If it is tech support, you do need to go through the tech support line, though. Other than that, if you just have a basic question on today's webcast, where to find it, things like that, shoot me an email or give me a call. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and get started on today's webcast. And I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody on here. If you can hear other people, please make sure to hit mute yourself. Let's hope this works.
All callers are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
All right, so here we go. Some of the new features. First of all, this is Civil 3D09. Some of the new features over here in my tool space. Back in 2007, we had the ability to take this bottom portion of the tool space here and shift it to the left side. That is now back with the push of a button, the toggle to orient the view frame space. So now if I toggle that, I can expand this out. Just have to get it just right. And now I've got this feature back. This works really handy when you're looking at points or point groups. If you're looking at points, it'll put all the information over here so that you can edit through it. But it's very handy for that, per se. And I really did like that feature when they had that back in the other days, so now we've got it back. Let's see here. Some of the other things that are briefly new before we get into points. Back here in our drawing settings on the Settings tab, one of the new features here is the International Foot conversion, or the U.S. Survey foot to meter conversion. Something the surveyors were asking for. We need an easy way to convert out of meters into feet. So now we have that. That's one of the cool new things. I'm pretty pleased with that. That's doable. I don't use it a lot, but some surveyors may find that extremely handy. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what's going on with points. There's a lot of things out here that are new. They got a new view cube, which I don't have up right now. The tooltips, if I just hover over something, let's find one right here. Some of the new tooltips. You also notice there's a totally new look to things. So this is the new tooltip. If you hover there long enough, it expands out and shows you everything, which is pretty neat. I really actually like this. You can turn it off, though, and if you turn it off, though, you lose that part right there also. You lose the hovering, just instant tooltip, or just like it was in 08, the hovering where it just told you what the button's name was. You'll lose that totally if you turn that feature off. You'll know it looks a lot like Vista. This is pretty typical. They're trying to get to a Vista look. I am currently running Vista today. This pull-down menu is a replication of all the menus on the top that you see up here. And wherever you stop on this pull-down menu, say I go here points, and I go to import points, and let's say I go import points, and I get the new import points box. I'll hit cancel briefly and go back to show you what it does. It will pick up where I left off and leave me on points, which is pretty neat. You can set up options. You now have what they call a quick view bar, and you can turn on and off your menu bar. That's what this is. I just right click over there and I can get the menu bar on or off, or I can customize this. This is called the quick access toolbar with that. And also, again, I can get to my toolbars. One thing you note here, there is the AutoCAD ribbon, which is not functioning that I know of yet in Civil 3D. Some people can get it to work, some people can't. I have not had too much success with it. But it does work fully functioning in AutoCAD Map 3D and AutoCAD. Needless to say, that's not a bad thing. So let's take a look. A lot of people screamed about, I need to bring in 2-3 million points, and I can't do it in AutoCAD 08, and we have a lot of problems. I've got a point file. Now, if I did this with an import points, I'll be honest, it would take about 10 minutes, and I don't want to spend all that time doing that. But what I'll show you is some of the new features in points without bringing that in. There's a smaller one here this is the huge one. This has got some 800,000 points. Notice I have a plus and a delete symbol here. I can continue adding on additional source files of additional sources and formats. I can add them to point groups. So for right now, I'm not going to do that, but you can continue to add. You couldn't do that in 08. Pretty nifty. One of the other things that's going on there, let's take a look. I can bring in some points now. You can do that. There's nothing, what I'm hoping with Service Pack 1 is, we've always had this up and the down arrow. I haven't put on Service Pack 1 yet. I'm hoping that it gives us the send to top and send to bottom arrow. That would be very nice. And I'll find that out tonight when I install it after this webcast. Some of the other features, that's the brief one for points, because really there's not a whole lot in points other than you can add in multiples at one time and you can bring in really large files. If I'm a civil engineer or a civil designer and I need to bring in a huge point file, but I really don't need to put it in my points database, I just need it for creating a surface per se, this is where this becomes real handy. I've already created a blank surface here. I've set up some definitions on it, just some really brief ones. I can nothing, I want to exclude elevations less than a foot zero, maximum triangle length of 200 feet. Hey, notice what I got here. Some cool looking buttons. These are a send to top and a send to bottom button. So I can take whatever operation happens down in my surface, select it and send it to top or send it to bottom. That's pretty cool. Other than that, let's add some point files. I'm going to go back and add that 22 megabyte point file here. And look, I get the same add point file box that's in the points for importing in points, which is great. So that means I can import in multiple point files at one time. But right now, I'm just going to bring in a huge one. This is 22 megs in size roughly. I am going to bring that on in, and it's going to take about a minute or so to chug away. This has 805,000 points and change. It's on average about a minute, a million points to import into a surface. I'm seeing anywhere from 4 minutes to 5 minutes for a 35 million point DEM or LiDAR file. Say if you go out and get the Washington State or Oregon State DEM and try to bring it in, it could take you 5 to 10 minutes just sitting there waiting for the machine to crank things out. But you can bring it in. Once it's in there, it's good to go. Will it slow things down? I haven't heard that it slows anything down. It's just the import time that it takes. So while I'm waiting here, and I love how it does this, it kind of kicks out and tells me warnings and all that great stuff because I set up some other stuff, which is fine. As I patiently wait and wait and wait. There we go. It ignored a point because it's below the given elevation or given limit of 0, which is great. So here we go. I got my points in here. And again, I can move this over here and see what's going on in a little better format. So there's my point file, which is great. I can also add in, let's take a look at the surface real quick. I'll hit rebuild on the surface. Now that I got my point file in there, and it'll take a second or two to rebuild. Yeah, let's look at 805,000 points. It's a lot of points. And it's a fairly large surface. You notice on my screen back here in the back, I've got this polyline boundary. I brought this in earlier today and I drew in a boundary, and you can do this before you bring in the points or after you bring in the points. It's just a simple closed polyline. I'm going to bring this in as a data clip boundary to show you how this works and to show you how the surface operation now works with surfaces. And it's almost done. And it's thinking about it again. There we go. Come on, go back. This is one of those deals, if you're going to be doing this with a surface and you're going to be using large points, I highly suggest keeping it in one file and using the data shortcut and data shortcut it out and bring it into another surface that way. That way you don't overtax the file size with it, because it will be fairly large once you get it done. You notice over here while this is sitting and spinning that down here I've got a data shortcuts addition besides the projects and the drawing templates in my master view, which is great. They've made a big change from 07 and 08 to how data shortcuts are handled. They're kind of going back to how it was in 06 to a degree. Not always, though. With it down there, after you save a file, and first off, I do say you have to save a file, you can create a data shortcuts folder. And it will go out on your projects directory, wherever you point it, and make a folder for data shortcuts with, alignments, profiles, surfaces, and pipes. And parcels. I don't think you can do parcels. No, I don't think it's parcels, but alignments, profiles, surfaces, and pipes. And it'll put a folder out there and they're blank until you populate them. And as long as you set that working folder current, it will be accessible in any drawing that you open, whether it's this project or another project. You can change the working folder and the working folder's location, and it will make it quite easy. So that's one of the newer features, is how they're handling data shortcuts now. You can also edit the data shortcuts with an external data shortcut editor. When you do use the editor, I do not suggest having Civil 3D open at the time. Some people have managed to crash the program at the same time. Others have not. Myself, I've been okay with running both of them at the same time. It's an external program like Reference Manager, per se. And it can be found out in your Start menu, through your programs, your application name of Autodesk Civil 3D 09. You'll find a data shortcuts editor in there. And when you open it up, it'll let you remap where the data shortcut came from, or how it's looked at, whether it's to be looked at name only, so it only identifies the name, or if it looks at the handle, which is how AutoCAD writes its lines and programs and vectors and whatnot. And they change up a lot. This is getting me concerned because I did this earlier today and it didn't take this long. And it shouldn't really matter what I set my definitions to. It should still like the folder and file and bring it in. The only difference between now and this morning was I was not recording the video, which makes me wonder if the recording is what's doing this and eating up my memory. Some of the other things, once I get this in here, we'll look at. I'll go ahead and take a data clip boundary, which is that polyline we got in the background here, and I'll apply this as a data clip boundary. I'll reorder the surface and rebuild it, and then I will go ahead and use simplify surface to simplify it down, and meaning I can pull points out that are within, say, 1/100th of a foot within each other, something that's not going to make a huge difference on the surface for us. A surveyor may or may not. You can get really specific on how much elevation you want to grab and how much you want to simplify. And there's a couple different ways of doing it. There are two ways. There's an edge contraction method and there's a point removal method. And the edge contraction looks at the edges of the triangles, and the point removal looks at, well, the points and compares the 2 points between them. Oh, let's see. Other things I mentioned earlier, there's a surface volume correction in here, which allows you to put a fluff factor for cut and fill. But do know when you do this, the overall total net volume is not affected by the fluff and the fill. You'll have to calculate that out yourself. What you see with the total net is actually based on the raw data. That can be confusing to some people that don't realize that. We actually played with that here to discover that's the case. And break line weeding allows you to weed out the points when you add a break line data to the surface, if you choose to. That wasn't there before. Before it was just add a break line, call it good. Now you can actually weed out points. And this is just classic. You start a webcast, you get going on it, it worked great before you started it, and the minute you start it, it doesn't work so hot. Gotta love it. If anything can happen, it's gonna happen when you're in the middle of a webcast. I kid you not. So, with that said, let's see if I can see what's going on back here in the background. Well, it's not quite eating on my RAM yet. It's at almost 2 gigs, and I've got 4 gigs on this machine, and the CPU's not quite kicking it out. But at least I know it's still going. It's interesting, this didn't take this long before, so I want to see what the heck is going on. Well, that's interesting. Okay, got back into that. So we were able to import in the point file. I can bring in the boundary. I can call it a data clip boundary. If I could spell correctly, my mid-ordinate distance, that's fine. Hit OK. Select my polyline back here. And hit rebuild. It should fill this in with all the contour information that's in the area. The thing is, you're supposed to be able to bring in the point file, bring in the data clip, and rebuild it. And it's supposed to clip some stuff out. Now, occasionally when you do this, it doesn't happen. You have to go in and go back into Surface Properties and do a reorder, which is what I'll do if this doesn't work correctly in a few minutes here. Give it a chance to do everything. So we all gotta love this event viewer. Did you know you could turn this off if you go to your settings? Right click on Edit Drawing Settings. Go into your ambient settings to General. And where it says Show Event Viewer, say No. That will turn off your event viewer. And I'm gonna go ahead and dock my window here. Once it catches up. Hey, look, it came up finally. Woo, there we go. All right, so this is our 805,000 point surface. Yeah, I put in a data clip boundary. It didn't exactly clip anything, did it? Well, let's get it reordering. Let's do a little reorder. Back here on our definition tab, I can take the boundary, I can send it to top, hit OK. I need to rebuild the surface, obviously. And it should rebuild the surface and only put it within that boundary I put in there. I'll give it a few minutes here to get going. It's trying to do it and it's thinking about it. And there we go. There's our data clip boundary. So how do you handle the large data points? First, bring in the point file. You know, you're going to see it. It's going to take a few minutes. Now, if you know exactly where your boundary is supposed to be, let's say you've already got it because you had a smaller surface, go ahead and add your boundary first and then bring in your point file. And if you do it that way, it should only come in and fill inside the boundary just like such, which is great. So, some other items. We mentioned Simplify Surface. Under the Edit command of the surface is a new one. Simplify Surface, not just Smooth, but Simplify. I have a choice of edge contraction or point removal. And the graphic there shows exactly what it does, pretty much. And it's a step-by-step wizard. I'll start with edge contraction. I'll hit Next. I can use the existing surface border, which is that you see there. I can remove up to 50%. Total points in the region are 9,169. And it's going to remove up to, say, 50%. Now, here's the catcher. I can hit Apply, and it'll do it. And if I hit Finish, it'll do it again. So after you're happy with Apply, hit Cancel. Programmers had an issue and didn't want to take out the Finish button. So I hit Apply. It tells me it removed 84 points. If I hit Finish, it'll do it again. See, I got two actions there. And it doesn't look too different than what we just had. Matter of fact, it's pretty much almost the same. I can go ahead and remove these one at a time, allow it to rebuild. Let's see if there's any difference on just that single one. It shouldn't change the overall look when it comes down to it. So there's a little bit of change because I hit it twice, isn't there? So I probably removed a lot more when I hit Finish. So don't hit Finish when you get done. Let's take a look at the other option. Let's go back to Simplify Surface. Let's use point removal. I'll hit Next. I'll use the same surface boundary, but you can get real specific. There's only 4,500 points still. There was 9. Hold on, let me hit cancel and rebuild so it brings everything back. Because right now it only thinks there's 4,000 points in there. We need to come back to our 9169. Make sure that it sees that I took out both of those simplifies. We'll give it a minute here. And this is, the more points you put in here, the longer it can take sometimes, which, that's not too bad. That's pretty good timing there. Let's try this again. Point removal. We'll hit next. We'll use this boundary. Now we're back to 9169. Maximum change in elevation. The first place it'll look is here before it's going to look up here. I can go ahead and go that way, hit apply. It's simplifying down in my bottom left corner. It's going to take out 823. And again, if I hit finish, it will do it again. So I'm going to hit cancel. And the actual look of the surface didn't change at all, but it removed 823 points. If I actually take a look at the surface properties, go to statistics, go to general, there I'm at 8618 and it was 9169 to begin with. So we'll actually remove the points out. Where does this come in handy? This comes in handy when you have a really large surface and it's slowing you down. And being able to remove some of those points without affecting the actual quality and integrity of the surface is kind of handy in that respect. So, surface creating, let's take a look at volume correction. Let's see here. We need to probably take a look at more than just that, 'cause we want to know what the volume is. Right now, the current volumes, if I just go into the volumes table, and this is our standard volumes table, I'll just create a new one. There's no comparison surface, so I need to put a quickie comparison surface on here. We'll just put a quick little surface on here. And I took off grading. That works well, Heidi. See if I can create grading out of this without having to go into grading. Yeah, right. I'm going to have to bring up grading. Well, let's create a different one here. This is going to be, first off, we need to figure out what the surface is there. 490, okay, that's a whopping 5 feet, so let's make this 20 feet in height. And we'll make a secondary surface. This is just to create it odd surface. Nothing special about it. We'll call this a standard. This is the odd standard. And note right here, I can weed these break lines out if I really want to. Say I got a lot of points on a break line, I can go through there and weed them. We didn't have that option before, so that's one of the new features right there. All right, there's my quickie surface. Now let's take a quick volume of the two. General, we'll go to surfaces, utilities, back to volumes. We'll do one. Our base surface is existing ground. Our comparison surface is our odd surface. And there's our fill, and our cut and fill factors are at 1. Well, maybe my cut factor needs to be 0.85, and my fill is 1.15. Note it gives me slightly different numbers on the adjusted, but the net matches the fill over here, okay? So note that the net is a representation of the raw cut and fill combined. You're going to get the adjusted fill and adjusted cut, but it's not going to be in the net. Whether or not this is repaired and fixed in Service Pack 1, I don't know. I don't think that was their intention either, was to give us an adjusted net. You would think that they would give us another column over here and call it net adjusted on top of that. But that's okay. We can do the computations ourselves, can't we? We have a calculator and a piece of paper, and we can write it down, add the two together, and figure it out. Not that big of a deal. All right, so that's all the new features in the surface area. So, gone through new surfaces. It's pretty cool. Some pretty neat, slick stuff there going on. And we've looked at points. There's only a couple new things going on there with points. Now, if you're looking at the survey menu, we usually don't go over the survey menu, but I will tell you that they have adjusted a few things. The one I did touch on the imperial to metric in the settings tab back here. The little button over here under units and zone. That's a new survey feature. There's new edit feature line command settings just about everywhere you go. Anywhere where you see feature line information, you will be able to edit the feature lines. See, I've taken out most of my feature line stuff in here. So if you're on parcels, you'll have parcels with feature lines. You can do map checks using labels now in the survey stuff. Using the actual label of a parcel, you can just right click on it and do map checks. There's tolerance errors. You can locate an observation tolerance errors for angles, distances, elevations, and coordinates. And you can translate the survey database, which allows you to move all the information from an assumed location to a known location. That's some of the newer features that are in 09 that were not in 08 or 07. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead, save this, get out of it. I want to take a look at alignments and profiles. I've got about a half hour left, and there's a lot of little things here I can cover. This is basically a standard 2D line work file. Nothing special on it. I got the polylines going on. I could create these by polyline. I don't have to though. Some of the things to note, we do now have design criteria. You'll see this in alignments and in profiles. You'll note that it's right here. It's called Design Criteria Editor. Let's take a quick look at this editor. In the editor of our alignments, it is done with Imperial. And you have the following items: minimum radius tables, super elevation attainment methods, and super elevation tables, design speeds and all that. Let's say I went into the AASHTO 2001 Emax of 4% for an urban road at a design speed of 25. If I do that, my radius is 2,500, no crown. Or super elevation rate. And they give you a lot of good information. This is just the super elevations. If I go into the radius tables just for alignments on the Emax, here's my 15, here's my 70. I can add to this table. And it lets me, by simply double clicking, sometimes single clicking will get it. I can add in, let's say it's 70. And let's say my radius is a considerable 2,000 feet, which I know is not true. Okay, I know that's not it. I'd have to go to the book myself and look. But they are here. You can also remove the item from the table. You can save it to the specific one, or you can make a whole new one. You can do a save as. You can open a whole different one if somebody else has used something totally different. Maybe they're not using AASHTO. Maybe there's somebody from Canada and they're using something way different. Well, and they give you the actual Autodesk Civil 3D Metric Roadway Standard Design Standards, XML, and I can bring that in, open it up, and use that. Profiles, they'll give you stopping sight distance, passing sight distance, and headlight sight distance. So we've got quite a few options there. You can save and close or just cancel, which I'm just going to cancel. If you lose this file, or let's say you get a drawing in from somebody else that's been on 09 and they've got their file, of course, in another location. When you go into the alignment properties, you can remap the location of where that file goes. This is also real typical when you have a VistaBox versus an XP box. My VistaBox puts my design check standards in a different location under users, my login, and program data. In XP, it goes under documents and settings, your users, application data, Autodesk Civil 3D, et cetera, down the line. So they're in two different locations. So if you find that your drawing isn't quite picking up on the design checks, you can go in and remap it specifically to each individual alignment. I've brought that to Autodesk and let them know that is an issue. I'm hoping, again, that Service Pack 1 here that just came out, I'm hoping that resolved that issue. So with further ado, let's do some alignments. We're just going to create one by a layout, just so you can see the difference here in the boxes. Now in 08, we didn't have a back tab back here. This is the cool design criteria tab. I can turn it on. I can just come up here and say this is a 20-mile-an-hour road. I can get real specific if I want to use this or not use it. I can use a different design criteria file. As you can see, mine's in a different spot. This is because I'm a Vista user. Of course, you can. It's the same other than that. You can stand up. You can do a design check set, which is found under your settings. I really don't do these because there's really nothing in here unless you go and create them. So there's nothing special to them. Under general, it's the same stuff, guys. There's nothing changed about it. It's gonna be, let's see here, we're going to do centerline. I'm not gonna put it in the site. We'll just call this Lacamas Ave. Hit OK. So that's one of our new features. If I go under here and take a look at curve and spiral settings, it'll preset everything for me to 200 feet, which is fine. Maybe I want to do tangent to tangent with no curve. Maybe I just want to draw lines. Some of the new features are these free curve best fits. How does that work? Well, I can draw a line. Let's say I draw a line. I'll start down here at the end of the bottom of the intersection. I'll just go up here to the end point, or the PC of my curve return. And let's do another one, the PT of my curve return, the PC of the next curve return. Now, I'm not going to get a whole lot of stationing. It's going to stop there. It's going to say this is the end point because it's not connected, but there's my two alignment lines. I can come back in here and say free curve, best fit. And if I read my command line, it says select first entity, which would be that guy. Select my next entity, which is that guy. I can do it 4 different ways, from Civil 3D points, from entities, from AutoCAD points, maybe by clicking on screen. And as I go out here, note the dashed line is showing me what it could possibly be. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I'll say undo. Maybe I'll really just put it right here. And it comes in pretty close. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want it way over here. So you see the dashed red line there represents what's going to happen. Now if I go ahead and hit enter, it's going to come up with a regression data box. And if, let's say, I selected more than just that one point, because you can continue to select points where it's got to go through all these points, right? I can exclude those points. And if I like what I see, I hit the green check. And when I do that, this becomes part of my alignment. And voila, there's my alignment. Now I can take this and move this somewhere over here. It's the wrong one. I know I put an alignment point there, so you can continue to do that more and more. And that's what these are for, these best fits. Now, here's the kicker here. If I go up and I try to edit the best fit data, here's my curve, there's my radius. I can actually edit it and shorten it. Sometimes you are not allowed, depending on which one you pick, to edit the data. There's my 25 footer. I think I've got 70 footers in here. So there's roughly almost what we've got. Might be 75. But there's my alignment. So you can take it, you can delete it with the delete subentity, because it is a subentity. There's other ones like that in here. There's the free spiral, curve spiral. These two on the bottom, the free compound spiral and the free reversal spiral, are the two new ones for here. There's also another free compound spiral here. Spiral to spiral one. Which one is that? That guy right there. That's the new guy. Those are the 3 new ones on there. If you're doing a lot of spirals for railroad tracks, there's a lot of new additions in here. And they have circular curve by length, someone buried in here, which I'm not seeing right offhand. It's probably buried, thoroughly buried in here. Unless they're talking about this, which I'm certain that's what this free circular curve by length is going on right there. The free curve best fit. I personally like that one, although it's, you know, it's different. It's not something I personally use all the time. I like to use the design checks up here. I could continue on with my wonderful drawing. That should have been like way up here, but it's not saying it. But you can continue on with them just like normal, and it should be putting them within your design checks. One thing to note when you're in your design checks, if you go to your alignment properties and you go over here to design criteria, and let's say I bump this up to 60. Now I've got it up to 60, I get these warning triangles that tell me it's not within the design. And you're like, okay, now what do I do? You can pick the sub-entity. That's the sub-entity picker I grabbed there. I can come down here and I can grab it. Come on now. There it goes. If I grab it and get it right, stretch that out a little bit so you guys can read that. Note up here at the top, it tells me it's what table it's picking it from. The minimum radius table is where the warning at, and this is called the warning symbol. Okay, and the radius value is 125, and the constraints, it has to be greater than 1,500 feet, basically. If I change that to 1,600 feet, it may not like it because of the shortness. If I actually change that to greater than the constraints, it will go away. Or if I go back in to my alignment properties, and I change this, let's say, to 15 miles an hour. And I take another look here at the sub-entity. And here it's telling me it has to be greater than 70 degrees, which it is. If I take this down to 60, it shows up. There's my warning symbol. If I take it up to 70, it goes away. If you have a passing and a stopping eye height combined together, it will go for the larger of the two. So even though your K value may need to be, say, 3, the other one's 180, it wants the 180. But as an engineer, you got to use your judgment. And you got to make that call and say, well, that's not going to work for me because, frankly speaking, that's not what I wanted. I didn't really care. So maybe that's really not everything that you needed. Let's take a look at some of the profiles. I've got a profile drawing out here I want to look at. And how does this work in profiles now that we've seen how it works in alignments? I mean, these are some pretty neat new things. I really like the criteria-based stuff, you know. It's pretty needed, and I'm glad that they finally did it. I've got a triple line profile out here. When you make a profile, you now have the option to do a triple line profile. When you go profile, let's say go create by surface, and let's just grab one of these I haven't done. Actually, most of these I have. I'll go ahead and say draw in profile view. Right here, I can show offset profiles by vertically stacking the profile views. That's one of the new neat things in the profile. You know, which is great. And then there's station range and profile view height, and that's fine. And stacked profiles, that's a new addition. Once you turn it on, you can go up to 9 stacked views. The more you add, the bigger it gets over here. Okay. You can change up which style is on each view and which view pertains to which item. Say you've got not just an existing ground center line, maybe you've got a left and a right edge of pavement. You can tell it, well, top view maybe is left, and my middle view is center line, and my bottom view is maybe right. So you can be very specific about what you show in those views. For right now, I'm going to hit cancel. I already got one out here. It doesn't separate them this far apart. Once they're out there, you can separate them as far as you want. Point here I want to show you is I've got these beautiful warning symbols, and I'm going to go in here to the profile properties, and again you get the design criteria tab. And it tells you it's taking it from the minimum K value table. It's just a simple center line. Again, it's a Vista thing. And again, you got this design check set. So we've got 2 at this point. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of edit the profile geometry. And when you do this in a triple line profile, it will allow you, when you edit it here, it'll usually reflect up top also. If I take a look at this guy, here I go. I got my constraints. It has to be greater than 3 for the stopping sight distance and greater than 180 for the passing sight distance. Well, maybe this has nothing to do with passing, you know. Maybe I don't care about that. Well, just because I don't care doesn't mean it's not going to give me the warning symbol. It's still going to give it to me until I get bigger than 180 degrees, or 180 feet. So if I go out 180 and match it, if it was big enough and I had enough room left and right, it would do it. The K value would go away. Basically, at this point, it's really the engineer's call. Once you get here, if you're happy with your 11K value, you really don't care about the 180, and you need to turn it off, you can go into the style, because this will print, those warning symbols will print. You can go into the style right here and turn off that warning symbol. So did you see? Let me show you that again. So that's under the style of the profile. And it's right there. It's that warning symbol under display. I just turned it off. Hey, another neat thing. They went from a 2D, 3D in your styles to a model, profile, and section, or model, plan, profile section. That's one of the new neat things. They've gone away from that 2D and 3D selection. Now you've got like 3 or 4, depending on what you're in. The profiles themselves, they have more free vertical curves. They have that same free vertical curve best fit. And this works really well if you have multiple curves. I tried doing one earlier up on this profile. It's not such a hot idea. It doesn't work so hot. I can try it here. Why not? It's not going to kill me. All right, so we got it there. Let's go here and let's go to the free vertical curve best fit. Wants the first entity, which is there. Wants the second entity, which is here. I'm going to do by clicking on screen. Let's say I go here to here to here, just to show you. So I use 3 passes. And as you can see in my regression graph, I've got a solid red line, and as I get over here, this isn't looking so hot. So what if I exclude number 3? Not bad. It's almost following like it should. What if I exclude number 1? That's looking even better. I'll hit OK with the green check. And voila, I've got this huge curve put in here, which is beautiful. Without that, you know, that's pretty nice. That's a nice new thing. Usually I've been using the free vertical parabola base, but that's been actually a really nice addition to see. So you can see that these are some pretty neat new things that are going on in here. If I take a look at the editing on this now, just to take a peek at what's going on with this guy. My K value is at 28. Note my design criteria now is ignored. Totally ignored on this. I can go into the properties of it. Even though I've set the design criteria, when I go into those best fit curves, it ignores those design criterias. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. But with the best fit one, that's what it does. All right, so that's where I've stopped for this webcast. And I'll unmute everybody.
Callers are muted.
That way, if you have questions, you can now ask me any question you would like. I'm prepared to show just about anything on the new features, although I know Jesse and Kevin Frocka and Craig Batchelor will be showing the rest of the new features later next month and as we go along month by month. You know, that's our theme for this time around. Next time, we'll get into more advanced topics. So, any questions from anybody? It's pretty silent out there, so you guys must be pretty happy with what you're seeing, or you're getting everything that you're seeing, which is good to understand. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm just kind of going through in here and showing you just briefly what this data shortcuts folder would do. I'm going to do that. I'm going to minimize these guys. I just set the working folder. Come on now. Hit save. You do have to save to make things work appropriately. Of course, if there's no data shortcuts in it, then it has a problem. I thought that one had data shortcuts in it. Okay. When you set that, note that I now have a mapping here for the data shortcuts, and if I go over here and I right click and say create, it'll grab every data shortcut in here, which would be my alignments in this case. I say make them all. Put them out here, which is great. If I hit save, I'm at my prospector, and let's say I go back to this one, which we haven't been in yet. This has got a surface in it from a shapefile from Clark County. And note my data shortcuts are now available. And I could say create a reference over here and hit OK. And there's my reference stuff. So you do have the ability with the data shortcuts now to go between the two with ease, a lot easier than 2008. So some of the nice, neat things. So I'm not seeing any questions, and I've got about 10 minutes left. I pretty much got everything I can get you guys today. Look for our user group meeting. It is coming up. Let me go back to my PowerPoint real quickly. We do have a user group meeting coming up August 27th. And if you're more curious about what's going on, I believe we're going over plan production August 27th for the user group. And that'll be going over, and that's up here at the PPI Training Center. And the PPI Training Center from 11 to 1. We generally do provide lunch when that happens. We should be going over plan production and Sheet Set Manager. Other than that, this is what's coming up, just as a reminder. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining me for this webcast. I hope that you got some good information from today. I hope it helped you figure out what